rid of all the. If that makes sense.
Excuse me just for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, so
Oh.
if we can kind of hold it down, because I wear hearing aids and this is hard enough. So, thank you.
Sure. No, and part of it probably is we're passing out the Lakeview surveys.
Right, right. So we got to get all that passed out. Right.
All right.
All right, not set up to get rid of all these.
Right, so the goal of the program is not to get rid of all the weeds in the lake. We want to make sure everybody knows that. The goal of the program is, I always say, is weeding the garden. We want to take out the invasive plants or the bad plants so that the good plants that provide good fish habitat and help water quality so that those can grow. So that's the goal of the Lake and River Management Program. And along with that, the first bad plant that I want to talk about is Eurasian WaterMilfoil. Okay, I think a lot of you are familiar with it. It's something we've been battling in Lake of the Woods and most of the other area lakes for years, okay? It's been here since at least the 1940s, so it's nothing new. And Eurasian WaterMilfoil, it's important that I share this with you. It's not something we're going to eradicate. It's not a plant that we're going to get rid of forever and we'll never have to deal with it again. Eurasian WaterMilfoil has been here, it's going to continue to be here. But what we're trying to do is manage it and keep the abundance low so that it has a minimal impact on the ecology of the lake and lake use. Yeah.
I'm new to the lake, which one is that? I don't know.
Yeah, Eurasian WaterMilfoil. I wish I had brought a picture with me. I don't have a picture.
Map in the closet. Pull that
Yeah,
out.
It's the one that sits on top of the water, looks like a big mat.
Which
That's
I,
what I thought,
Okay.
I just wanted to, just what it was.
that's what I think pine tree. So, yeah. And last year, I've kind of given a shorter version this year, so I don't take you guys whole meeting. I gave the really in-depth version with PowerPoint and everything last year. So this is a little bit shorter version this year. But Eurasian WaterMilfoil looks like a big pine tree. One of the reasons that it's bad is that most of your native plants start on the bottom and they grow to the surface. And then they're kind of content, they kind of hang out and they're good. Eurasian WaterMilfoil, I always say that it's kind of like me, it's kind of like us, so we're greedy sometimes, right? It gets to the surface, but it doesn't stop there. It keeps growing horizontally across the top of the surface of the water. So what happens is sunlight cannot get through that Eurasian WaterMilfoil mat that it forms. And so the native plants underneath can't get sunlight. So it's like growing in the shade, or planting your garden in the shade. It outcompetes the native plants. It also grows by fragmentation, so if you have Eurasian WaterMilfoil at your dock, and you pull a plant out, and you break it in two, and you throw it back in the water, you don't have one dead plant, you have two live plants instead of one. And so that's just a couple of the advantages that the Eurasian WaterMilfoil has over your native plants to kind of make it bad, okay? So we've been fighting Eurasian WaterMilfoil Lake of the Woods for years, and we will continue to do so, okay? Not gonna get rid of it. Oh, yeah, question? Yeah.
What is the weed that is taking over our area? It's not a great big.
You'll get to that one.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, there's the article.
Good question. Probably this one.
Yeah.
Probably starts to warn, and we'll talk about that next. But first of all, with the milfoil, so we know a little bit about what it is, what it does, and why it's bad. This is what 2020, we had 108 acres of Eurasian WaterMilfoil. It's horrible. The lake was a mess. And at that time, the DNR just wasn't permitting, and I'm not going to throw the DNR under the bus, they have a hard job. The DNR was not permitting us to treat enough acreage to have a real impact on the milfoil. It was a bad situation, but since that 108 acres that we had in 2020, the DNR has allowed more treatment of the milfoil. And that has been a great thing. We've done two things differently in the past 5 years that really have us in great shape on the milfoil. The first one of those is the DNR started permitting early season selective treatment of the milfoil. They allow us 41 acres of milfoil to be treated before the water temperature reaches 60 degrees. So early in the spring, most of your native aquatic plants aren't there. They die back, they're growing from seed or from rhizome, but the milfoil hangs out all winter. So what you can do is come in early in the spring and treat the milfoil and the curly leaf pondweed before the native plants emerge. And, yeah, question.
Why is the DNR limit beyond three?
Yeah, good question. So there's always the balance in Lake of the Woods especially, and some of the lakes that have historically had low water clarity. There is a balance between, okay, we've got tons of milfoil, but if we don't have anything else, is a bad plant better than no plants? That was the balance they were trying to reach. But what you guys have seen, you're, at least from what I've seen, your water quality has actually improved. The clarity has improved over the last several years. And I can say with certainty, your native plant community has improved a bunch. And sometimes that's to the landowners, right? You got plenty of plants out there. And so that was the balance they're trying to reach. So they've allowed us to treat the curly leaf pondweed, which is another invasive plant, and the milfoil early in the season. So right off the bat, we get about 41 acres of invasive plants that we can take care of. That has been, I can't underscore how important those treatments have been to getting the milfoil and the curly leaf to some extent under control. That's been a huge help. The other thing that has really helped out on milfoil control is there's a new product we've been using for the past, about 4 years, and that's called Procelicor. It's just a newer product, a newer herbicide, and in the old days, we would treat with 2,4-D, and been using that for years. The difficulty with 2,4-D, aside from the 21-day irrigation restriction that nobody likes, the difficulty was if I have 6 acres of milfoil over here, and I treat it with 2,4-D this spring, next spring, I'm gonna treat the same 6 acres with 2,4-D again, just to keep it knocked down for the season. What you can do with the newer product, Procelicor, it works better and it lasts longer. So a lot of times we can treat the 6 acres over here this spring, and next spring, it's not there. Now, there's a couple advantages to that, to getting multi-year control on an invasive plant. One of the advantages is I don't have to pay to treat that area, right? So maybe I can use that money to treat an area over here, and I can rotate the areas that I treat and stay on top of the milfoil. The other advantage to multi-year control is if next spring this milfoil is not there, that's when the native plants can grow. Your water's most clear in the spring. That's when your native plants will grow best. And if the milfoil is not dominating the shallow area in the spring, the native plants can grow. So those are the two things, the early season treatments and the new product that have helped us. We're in really good shape on the milfoil. You know, especially if you're on the west side of the lake this year, you might look out there and say, wow, we are not in good shape. As far as the milfoil goes, we are in good shape. Okay.
And if anybody wants to see maps of
Yeah.
where we were,
These are great. These are
2020, that's milfoil, all of that.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah,
And
it's
even
a last-
the second year of the Procelicor, that was year before that, so it's working.
Yeah, yes.
How often do you go out and look at the lake? I mean, have you been out recently?
Yeah, I've been out on the lake twice this year, and we go out before that early season treatment. And we take a look at the lake, see what plants are there, and we map it with GPS. So we're mapping the curly leaf and Eurasian WaterMilfoil. Now, normally, I will say on the early season treatments, we're targeting the same areas every single year.
I've been here for 23 years, and I just happened to be out boating yesterday. And it seems to me there's a huge amount of weeds. I don't know if they're native or not,
It's
but
different.
there's an extremely large amount of weeds, probably more than I've ever noticed out there.
Yeah,
You can talk
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, and it's a good observation, and from what I've seen being on the lake, surveying it twice this year already, it's a correct observation. As far as there just being an immense amount of growth in general. And I'll get to that as I talk about the next plant here, Starry Stone. Okay. Now, Starry Stonewort is a newer, I say newer invasive plant. It was first found in northern Indiana in 2008. It's different than a lot of your invasive plants. Most of our invasive plants come up from the south. Right, they come up from Florida, they come up from Tennessee. Starry Stonewort's actually coming down from the north. St. Lawrence Seaway, Lake St. Clair, Detroit, it's making its way south, which is a little bit unique. Starry Stonewort is the by far the biggest invasive challenge that I've seen in doing this for 20 years. It's a whole new breed of invasive plant, and one of the things that is hard, there's a couple things that are hard about it. Number one is it targets lakes with good and improving water quality. Most, like Eurasian WaterMilfoil, curly leaf pondweed, they like lakes that don't have much water clarity because they do well. They don't need a whole lot of light. Starry Stonewort loves clear water, so lakes, Tippecanoe, Wawasee, that have pretty good water clarity. Man, it's just going nuts, a lot worse than you guys have here even, because it likes that clear water, unfortunately. The other hard thing about Starry Stonewort is it's an algae. It's not actually a vascular plant. Won't bore you with the details there, other than to say, a vascular plant like milfoil, we can treat in the spring, and usually it stays gone the whole year. Starry Stonewort, we can treat it in the spring, and 3 weeks later, or a month later, we have to treat it again because it regrows so fast. So especially when we talk about treating Starry Stonewort, the metaphor that I always use is mowing the lawn. I don't like that, but you treat it, you burn it back, and it works pretty well, but it will start to regrow. It produces a star, it's called Starry Stonewort. It produces a little hard star about the size of a pencil eraser. That hard star falls into the mud at the bottom of the lake, and it can lay dormant there for 8 years. None of our herbicides can affect it at all, and then it can resprout. So when we talk about Starry Stonewort control, that's the difficulty. We always say we're never going to get rid of it, and we're going to have to treat it multiple times in one season just to kind of keep it burned back to the point where it's not a problem.
Okay, yeah. Well, I have a question. Somebody said back, where you're talking about 3-4 and the, whatever the hell it is that's spread out. You mentioned that you can treat that area and then you can leave that alone next year and go back to a different area and treat that. But then, I'd say 5 minutes later, you just said that we went and treated the exact same area multiple times over multiple years. So that kind of contradicts what we were saying.
No, I've got two different.
Right, no, that's a good point. The 2,4-D is what you have to treat the same area every single year.
Okay.
Cellulose is where you can rotate treatment acres. So if you go a little bit deeper into that to answer your question, I'm not going out there and saying, hey, you've got 20 acres of milfoil this year, we're gonna treat 10. That's not what I'm doing. We're targeting I'm mapping this aggressively. We're targeting all the milfoil we find every year. But what's happening is you're able to manage a total of 100 acres of milfoil
Down to 12.
by treating maybe 12 a year in different spots, if that makes sense. So that's the advantage that Procellacor gives you. Yes, it's more expensive, but it lasts longer, and you can manage a bunch of acres over the course of 5 years as they gradually regrow from that treatment you had 2 or 3, 4 years ago.
So question, you said they advertised 2 years, how many years do you actually get?
Yeah, so what we've seen, and to some extent, it is rate dependent. Some of these areas have been treated and they never really have come back after 3 years. It's a fairly new product, but I know like on Chapman, we treated about 60 acres of milfoil out there. Hard, aggressively, like we have here. And a lot of it did not come back for 4 years. If you're in a real shallow, a really muddy place, I'm gonna expect it back in 2. So 2 to 4 years, depending on the bottom type, how long the milfoil's been established there and they're ready to use. Good question. So Starry Stonewort, it's bad. And I guess the discouraging news, we won't end there, but the discouraging news is we've got 50 acres of Starry Stonewort this year. Again, I mapped everything I could possibly find. But when you find 50 acres of Starry Stonewort in a lake like this, and I brought a copy, but she's got a nice laminated one here. around the majority of the lake, okay? And a lot of the places where we're not finding it, it just drops off real quick at the end of the piers. So Starry Stonewort has really increased from last year. Last year, we mapped about 23, 24 acres. This year, we're almost double that. And this was surprising to me, and I'll tell you guys why I think that is. This winter, Starry Stonewort, the conventional wisdom is it dies back every winter. We usually don't even survey for Starry Stonewort till maybe the first week of June, but I'd rather wait till the second week of June because they say it's a late bloomer. It's just not there in the spring, period. It doesn't come up till the water temperature is 75. This year, it never died. It never died back, and it was obvious. If you went to our early season treatment area here in the north end, when I took my boat through there, it just knocked the snot out of the Starry Stonewort. That was one of the best areas that I surveyed for Starry Stonewort, not for algae and the other plants, but the Starry Stonewort in the north end got knocked for a loop by our early season treatment this year. That's good. That's value in the early season treatment. That shouldn't happen. Starry Stonewort shouldn't be there yet when we do that early season treatment. This is the first winter I've ever seen, it's not just you guys, where Starry Stonewort did not die back during the winter. And that's an important point, and it speaks to what you were saying earlier. I'm not a climate change activist or anything like that. All I know is what I'm seeing on the lakes is the continued repetitive mild winters that we've been having are affecting our lakes in a gigantic way. You can ask the Webster Lake Association, Barbie Lake Association, right back by my hometown. There's so many lakes this year that are dealing with, and I can show you pictures, exactly what you guys are dealing with. I've never seen the algae this bad. Most of what you're seeing on top is the algae. It's not even a plant. And I've never seen the native plants come up this fast, this early in the spring. And I've never, ever in my life seen Starry Stonewort over winter. It's not supposed to do that. The winters we're having are affecting the
I
lake.
love mild winters.
Yes.
So the milfoil, bad, I get it, it bites on the surface, it gets chopped up, it blocks the sunlight, that crap back in. I think you're fixing your.
Yeah.
But help me understand, because I don't know. Good growth as opposed to the stony star, where it is. It's not matting on the surface, right? So tell me why it's bad as opposed to other good.
Yeah, so Starry Stonewort, this is just my opinion, is worse than Eurasian WaterMilfoil in this sense. It will fill the water column completely. Eurasian WaterMilfoil goes vertically up to the top and max and doesn't let sunlight through. But if you're in an area that's say 4 feet deep, a little bit of a muddy bottom, and I bet I'm preaching to the choir to a few people here. Starry Stonewort will completely, there will be no water. It will fill the water column completely. So that's the difference in the growth habit from milfoil, which doesn't let the natives grow underneath, but at least there's water underneath, where Starry Stonewort is just like carpet.
So the native stuff doesn't go to the surface, or I don't know the difference.
Yeah, and
Stay down below, it's good fish habitats, what, that's what I'm trying to get.
yeah, so Starry Stonewort, what I've seen repeatedly over these past 12 years we've been managing. Starry Stonewort will outcompete your native plants. Starry Stonewort will outcompete your milfoil too. And I've never seen a plant that would do that around here except hydrilla one time. In Lake Manitoba, Starry Stonewort will outcompete everything if the conditions are right. Yeah.
I got a question. I know the maps and that they usually highlight the edges of the lake. But what I noticed last night when I was driving around, and I don't know if these are native plants, but pretty much the whole third of this end of the lake and the west bay and part of the north is weeds consistently due to water. I mean, we had to, one lap around the lake was 3 or 4 times backing up, getting weeds off the motor. So I don't know if those are native plants or what those are, if you can tell us what those are.
Yeah, I surveyed all those areas, and you're right. And it kind of shows up on this map. If you're talking about the south end of the lake, there being weeds all over. It's because there is a big sandbar out there and a big shelf off the south end. You've got the same thing on the west side of the lake too. You got a big shell. This is all shallow area out there. And so they call it the littoral zone of a lake. Anywhere where it's shallow enough that the sunlight can reach the bottom, it's gonna grow plants, okay? And so that's what you're seeing. Most of what you're seeing in a lot of those areas is sago pondweed, small pondweed, and algae, okay? Should we run? Yeah, but anyway, this is probably the worst year for those plants. I mean, it doesn't matter what plant you're talking about. This is the worst year for those plants. As far as the amount of growth that I have seen, and part of it is your water is so clear. Yeah, right there, it's so clear for this time of year. You know, normally, once you guys get to June, that water clarity is really decreasing. If it stays that clear, your algae, okay, which is the slimy mossy stuff, it grows on the bottom. It produces oxygen in its cells and then it floats up to the top. When you're seeing the mossy mat, that's the algae. Okay, that's actually not an invasive plant or any vascular plant. It's just, they call it filamentous algae. We can treat it, we can take care of it. It comes back pretty quick. But most of what you're seeing on top is actually the algae, and it will be growing on. Like if you're in the West Bank, okay, I surveyed that, like, my goodness, the Starry stonewort's coming in. But the problem there right now, if I'm a homeowner, is actually, I've just got a ton of small pondweed, which is a native plant, and then that reaches the surface, your algae, which is epiphytic, it likes to grow on things. When you got plants that reach the surface, makes it easier for that mat of algae to form. Okay, and that's something you normally don't see if your water clarity is a little bit less than it is. And the wind is a huge part of that too, yeah.
The Starry Stone, we ordered some product.
Yeah,
From your
yeah.
company. Is it even worth treating it with? Okay.
If it was, yeah, if
Okay,
it was
the other
my.
thing is, we can't even fish
Yeah.
or get our boat
Yes.
into the water because it is so bad.
It'll get worse and worse and worse
I know, so what do we do? I mean,
every 3 weeks.
we bought the place down here and we can't use it. And when we went out to pull up some of the Starry Stone, there was actually air bubbles coming up from where we were pulling it. Why are the air bubbles coming up? Does that mean there's not enough oxygen underneath it, or to help treat this, or?
Right, no, I wouldn't be so worried about the air bubbles. Anytime you like disturb the sediment, there's gonna be a lot of the methane and the gases that are down there that come up. So the air bubbles wouldn't necessarily be anything bad, but it's a good point. Like you said, the Starry Stone, you can't get your boat out and you can't fish. That's what it does. It fills the water column and you can't fish and you can't get your boat free. And you can run your boat through milfoil and kind of clear your prop, throw it in reverse for a few seconds and go through. If you run your boat through Starry Stonewort that's dense, you're done. Because it wraps around your prop and you can't get it off.
Like stringy.
It is, and it all clumps together. So the first time I ever treated Starry Stonewort, I didn't really realize the fact and just went right into it. It was on Lake 12-1C. I had to get towed out.
So how do we get the front of our property, so we're responsible to
Yeah.
get you to come in and help us treat it?
Yeah, good question. So, and that's where I'm going next. We
Okay.
talked about the Starry Stonewort. The difference is you have to treat it multiple times every year because you can't keep it out. We did a research study on Lake Wawasee with the Lilly Center for Lake and Stream several years ago, testing different products on Starry Stonewort to see what worked the best. What we found was we tested, I think it was 9 different herbicides. And Lilly Center would come in after us and they'd survey, okay, what worked the best? They all work. We've got a lot of great products that work on Starry Stonewort. The problem is how fast it regrows, okay? So that was the end of that study was, yeah, we've got a lot of good products, but we can't keep it out. It just regrows so fast. So what I tell people is if you've got a place where Starry Stonewort's really doing good on the end of your pier, and you can't fish, and you can't swim, and you can't boat, it's frequency of treatment.
What was that again?
Frequency of treatment is the key, and just again, think of that metaphor, the lawnmower. If I go out and mow the lawn today, it's short, we're good. In another 3 weeks, it's gonna look much the same. And so I'm not saying you have to hire us to do that every
No,
time,
No, I
but
wasn't.
it's just,
But
yeah.
it's $135 for one bag.
It's very
Yeah,
expensive.
it's expensive.
And if we have to keep treating it, isn't it better to have you guys come in and treat it for us?
Yeah.
You'll pay $1,400.
Oh, forget that.
$414 maybe, is that the right?
What's that? Yeah, it's around 400 in there,
Yeah.
so treat
You're
a
paying for
private
their boat
lot.
and their time
Right,
and
right,
labor.
but that's, you know.
Yeah.
if
My
we
husband
get-
and I just did a
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
we get some of our neighbors.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, so what I guess if I had it just horrible in my peer, I would consider this, I would probably, sounds like I'm drumming up business, I would have us come in and treat it. We'll use a combination of things that really knocks it back, but then after that, you know, it's usually just not feasible to pay us to come in and treat this stuff every 2 to 3 weeks.
Maybe the first
Um,
go and then you can,
Right, well, that's what I'm wondering.
If you
what
have the
is-
copper,
Okay,
have us treat it once, we'll come in and treat it, and then after that, as it starts to regrow, if you repeatedly put the copper down, that will keep it burned back, and the copper.
sulfate?
Yeah, copper sulfate will work. Copper sulfate is a pretty safe product. Copper sulfate will not hurt most of your native plants, so you might be left with other things. But to take care of the starry stonewort, copper's gonna be probably your best bet as a homeowner. But again, the key is, if you throw copper sulfate in the second week of June, expect to be clear on the 4th of July and August, it will not. You have to do that.
we had them do that, our neighbors and all of us got together and they came in and did the big shock, if you will. They were right, and shocked it, and now we're trying to decide, you know, how often do we need to buy and put it on ourselves.
we have a park next to us that the kids are supposed to be able to swim in. Well, they don't swim in it, they throw it at each other.
Yeah.
And that's gross, but like I said, we just don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah,
And we want to use the lake.
that's right.
So if we got company that's coming in July, when should we treat it with your product?
Mhm.
Because I ordered 2 bags and I want my granddaughter to be able to swim.
Yeah.
So where do I take her on the lake to swim?
Yeah, yeah. Now, if you got a company coming in July and you want it to be under control, treat it now and later. That sounds awful, but that's what it takes. Think of it like mowing your lawn. It takes repetitive treatment. We have a lot of channels on Lake Tippecanoe in my neck of the woods over here to the east a little bit. And we were doing 2 applications per year with them. And for years, it had worked great. We had happy customers. They thought it was wonderful. They got Starry stonewort. Then all of a sudden they're saying, hey, you're doing 2 applications per year. We still got your weeds. So what we've started doing with them is we put them on a rotation where we're actually treating their channel every 3 weeks. We're doing that on 1 channel, now 2, now 3, now 4. And they love it. It works great, but that's what it takes. It takes the repetitive treatment. Doesn't matter what you use, it's
Right,
gotta be repetitive.
but it's lowering our taxes keep going up because they're saying we're on a lake, but actually my property value is going down because of this problem.
It's hard because, and I'll make this point broadly, and it's not just your lake. Our lakes are under pressure. They're under increasing pressure, and if we get another winter like we had this last one, where I'm an ice fisherman, I love to ice fish, so I track the winters, I know what they're doing. We ice fish for like 4 days. You know, that if we get winters like that, they're virtually non-existent, it will get worse. And that's not good news, but it's the truth. Our lakes are under pressure from use, our lakes are under pressure from runoff and nutrients, our lakes are under pressure from just not having a real winter where even starry stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Like
ask,
here, that-
can we ask people who haven't asked the question
Yeah.
first, and before we go back to
It's
repeat?
you, and then I'll come here, okay?
So you treat it and then you have the dead material.
Yeah.
How long does it take to decay? Because we get the smell when the stuff is decaying. If you treat it now, it decays for a week or 2, and then you have another, like 1 week of clean and you have to treat it again.
Yeah, and the good thing about the repetitive treatments is it will decrease your biomass over time. So it's kind of like, instead of letting your grass get 4 feet tall and then trying to mow it and you've got dead grass all over, if you keep mowing it while it's low, you don't really notice the biomass that's decaying. So yeah, get that first treatment in, but if you keep at it, you will have less of the smell and less of the decay through time. That makes sense?
You keep referring to kind of like mowing your grass, and there's natives you can plant where you don't have to mow your grass. So are there natives, now granted, maybe not everybody likes how they look, or they don't like, but are there natives that you can plant that will help with the starry stone wart?
Right. No. And then that's. I wish.
It is aggressive.
I haven't seen anything.
You said it likes really clear water, and we all also like really clear water, but I didn't know if there were ways to do that.
It will, every native plant I've seen, I will add the caution to that if the conditions are right. So if you're on a really gravelly, sandy area, there are a few plants like Illinois pondweed that can deal with that where starry stonewort can't. But if you're in 4 or 5 feet of water and you got a little bit of mud there, it doesn't have to be super muddy, but a little bit of sedimentation in that situation, I haven't seen anything from a native, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, sorry if I'm jumping ahead here, but I'm hearing repeated spraying, we're gonna spray it, and all these things, but can you talk, I've got to go from trees on the water all the time, we swim. Can you talk to how safe that is for people to swim, for animals, for the fish to eat, how, is there a time frame? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so normally when we come in and treat, especially if you're looking at a copper algicide, which we would use for starry stonewort control, there's no swimming restrictions at all. There actually aren't any swimming restrictions on any of the products that we use, believe it or not. What I tell people is if it was my 13-year-old daughter jumping off the end of the pier or my dogs going in there, common sense would say, you know what? I just had this place treated. I'm going to keep them out for an hour, if that makes sense. But as far as the safety to human, legally and what we post in the yard, there's very few restrictions. If we treat milfoil, there'll be maybe a 7-day irrigation restriction where don't take water from the lake and water your tomatoes with it for 7 days. That makes sense. But as far as the human health hazards, by the book and by the label, you can jump in right behind my boat after I treat. But I wouldn't lay in the fish or anything like that. No fishing restrictions. You can catch fish right away. You can eat those fish right away. And again, I use common sense, and with my daughter, when I treat our little pond back home, stay out of the water I just tell her to stay out for a couple hours. You know, about half hour is good.
What about the stuff? I'm assuming you're talking about the stuff that you use, but are there stuff out there that people run, I know people run the lake, they buy their own stuff, but out there on the property, which is fine. Are there other products out there that we might be aware of, or should be wary of?
Yeah, so there's tons of products out there available for aquatic use. What I say is, and not everybody can be an expert on herbicides, I realize that. If you go to Track Supply or Rural King and you find something, make sure that it's labeled for aquatic use. Okay, that's your best protection there. That it's in the pond section. Yes, you can use this in water. Most of what you find in the farm stores is going to have 1 of 3 ingredients in it: copper, diquat, maybe flumioxazin now, but those will be safe if you apply them according to labeled rates. According to the label. That's always one of my big concerns about homeowner treatments is sometimes there's the idea that, well, 1 gallon works great. And 5 gallons would work awesome. That's not that, okay? So keep that in mind. Labeled aquatic labeled products, labeled rates.
Yeah, there are a couple people at it.
I'm sorry, yeah. Let me go
Here
back.
and there.
Yes.
Besides treating it, having you treat it and we're also pulling it out.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's just too massive and we're getting it out of the water. And also, what about the algae? How safe is that?
Yeah.
We worry about the dog and everything. And we saw a little bit of blue-green now.
Yeah, so first of all, mechanical removal of starry stonewort. And again, not trying to be accusatory or anything like that. Don't recommend that as far as, that's one of the things that a lot of times can help the spread of starry stonewort in general is because it's so brittle. If you've ever pulled some of it up, there's these little, well, they're about segments about that long, starry stonewort, just literally millions of them just floating all over. So mechanical removal of starry stonewort isn't necessarily recommended from that standpoint. I know there's people with, what else can I do? I've got it on my shore, and they do that.
Because the fragmentation makes it grow.
It grows by fragmentation,
It's
big,
all-
much more so, I would say much more so than your water milk. Much more so. So anytime we pull it up or run the boat prop through it, that just helps it spread. And that's why it does what it does, and not any person's fault, but that's just kind of the nature of the beach. That's why it's so bad. The algae you mentioned, the filamentous algae, no danger at all from the filamentous algae to you or your dogs, other than it's icky. It gets all over everybody. It won't hurt your dogs a bit. The blue-green algae, you do have to be a little bit careful with. In the past, you guys have had a lot of blue-green algae out here. Not the end of the world. Don't sell your lake home. If you get like a green paint, not mossy, but like a thin green paint on top of the water, that's probably microcystis. It can produce a toxin that could probably give you a stomach. It's a liver toxin, but it would be really hard unless you're drinking the water from the lake. It's going to be hard to really run into problem with humans. But dogs are incredibly sensitive to it. You might remember Salamone Reservoir a couple of years ago. It sent the dog in the reservoir. Dogs are incredibly sensitive to the green. So if I see that, I'm probably going to keep my dog out of the water. Yeah.
If you could predict from your experience, are we gonna see in the future where the lake is virtually entirely ringed with the Starry stormwater?
We're almost there, and a lot of the places where we're not finding it now, just, like around here, they just aren't that conducive to Starry stormwater. So I would say this, you're probably gonna, where we're at now, I would consider Starry stormwater common to your whole shallow water zone. Okay, I'm mapping it the best I can, from what I can see, but when you get up to 50 acres, I would just consider this to be almost everywhere, if that makes sense.
The second part is it moving into deeper water?
It is, and you actually see that. I actually mapped some on the east side of the lake, that is moving into deeper water. Part of that is water clarity. The water's really clear this year, and that allows Starry stormwater to go deeper because it can still get the sunlight. So it's moving deeper, it's ringing.
One, is there some way, if the money is limited, and prioritize the Starry stormwater areas that need to be sprayed? Is the plan, to rotate? You spoke about rotation. Is rotation the best way, or is it just a mass spray 2 to 4 times a year? I don't think not spraying is an option. Obviously, it's just gonna proliferate. Cost. Just so everybody knows, this year, just to spray the 51 acres is a little over $21,000.
Just for that.
Just one spray.
We've already spent
So,
10,000 this
We've
year.
already spent over 10,000 on the curly pond weed spray initially, and which was also Eurasian WaterMilfoil. So with that being said, 3 sprays would be about $64,000. We don't have that kind of funding, period. So it's going to be pick and choose areas that are going to have to be sprayed. Not everybody's going to get sprayed. Not everybody's going to be happy. Okay, but I'm gonna throw that out to you so you can kind of prioritize that and tell them what the plan should be.
Yeah, so prioritization of Starry stormwater. It's changed, and what I say is, when a lake gets Starry stormwater for the first time, like you guys did 5 years ago, 2020, we always recommend that lake association treat all the Starry stormwater you have aggressively 3 times a year. Okay, that's the protocol. And that's worked well. I will say this, and I will just be honest with you, this is a little bit disappointing to me to see the fast progression here, but it's also not, I'm gonna say it's not surprising. We have lakes like the Barbie chain where we've been treating for 6 years, and they're still under 10 acres or under 12 acres. And here, we just haven't been able to contain it the way that I hope we would. But part of that is the Barbie chain, if you're familiar with that, their water is just a little bit darker. And the Starry stormwater is just a little bit less aggressive. You guys, with the increased water clarity that I've seen over the past 3 years, man, the Starry stormwater loves that, and it loves these winters. And so I'm disappointed that we went through this progression, but I don't want you guys to feel like, oh man, it's just us, or that nobody else is experiencing it. This is expected at some point for every single lake, and we went through this with other lakes, and you can't get to the sense that we've lost. You just have to understand that this is the next step. We kept population as low as we can for as long as we can. And we bought some time. We've had 5 years where, understand, like Lake Wawasee, we found it in 2008, had 5 acres. Okay, in 5 years, it had 250 acres. It's that aggressive of a plant, so it could be even worse, but where we're at now is, usually I say that cutoff is like 15 to 20 acres. What we found is once you get Starry Stonewort above 15 to 20 acres, it's just hard to slow it down. At that point, there's just too much of it in too many areas, it gets fragmented and spread. You guys are at the point where, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, where we're at now, and we knew we'd get there, is there's nothing that we can do to slow the spread. At this point, there's too much of it in too many areas, so prioritization. The association is gonna have to prioritize areas of, I always, kind of the big 3. Public use, high traffic, and high density areas, meaning if there's a place that everybody uses, like the sandbar, if the Starry Stonewort was just horrible at the sandbar out there and people like using the sandbar, maybe that's a good place, okay? But aside from those, the boat ramps, you guys don't have much of the boat ramp, there's not much on the sandbar, okay? Well, where are your high density areas? The northeast corner here is about as bad as it gets, so that would be a high density area. I would probably prioritize that area, the north and northeast portion of the lake, okay? It's coming in on the west. So that's a situation where, wow, you guys have all kinds of other plants over there on the west side. But the Starry Stonewort's coming in now too. That's a toughie. But prioritize the areas where people can't use the lake. And what that's gonna mean is Joe's gonna donate and maybe never get his place treated. And Sally over here, man, maybe she didn't even join or donate or whatever, and she gets her place treated every year. Those are decisions, and I'm just gonna kind of speak on behalf of your board. Be nice to them, because whatever they do is wrong. Whatever they do is wrong in that situation, you can't, I'm being honest with you, you can't treat this stuff, all of it, 3 times a year and have any money left to do anything else. And I wish it wasn't like that. The herbicides for Starry Stonewort are expensive, and you gotta do it repetitively. There's not gonna be enough to go around. Whether you rotate areas, you can. The difficulty is it's not like milfoil, where you can treat an area, it's gonna be gone, and then we'll focus on this area. I can treat this area and then rotate to this one, but in a month, that one's gonna need repair. That's the hard part. Okay, so priority, high use, high traffic, high density, where people can't use it. And just defer to one another and love. That's a tough thing sometimes, but it is. It's not gonna be fair.
Elaine has a question.
Yeah.
So I have 2 quick questions. One, obviously being on the board and stuff, how are other lakes in Indiana dealing with the high cost of this?
Yes, so what most lakes are doing is exactly what I just laid out. Boat ramps, well, like Chapman Lake, they've got so much of it in so many areas. What they said was, we were treating everybody, we just don't have the money to do it anymore. They are treating the boat ramp, the public boat ramp. They're treating the channel out to the main lake. And there's a marina, right? High use, high traffic, high spread.
But how are they getting their money?
They are applying to Lair, and they're getting much the same funding that you guys
So
are.
similar to what we.
Yeah,
What about what Layer does, though? They cap it.
Yeah, so their caps,
$5,000, right?
their caps started Stonewort funding in $5,000.
And my other question is,
Everybody wants your representative.
everybody wants to have their area right there, they have people coming and want to look nice and stuff. But, and a lot of people say, well, I'll just, I'm not worried about the rest of the lake, I'll just treat right where my house is, because that's all I'm concerned about, even though the lake is everybody. But the thing is that, is it possible for when people, even though we might buy it for that, people go and look and they say, oh, this will work for me, and they're actually damaging the entire lake for trying to get their area clear, because they say, well, I can just do it myself. Is that a clear picture?
On Eurasian WaterMilfoil, that's an exactly accurate picture. On Starry Stonewort, not as much. A lot of times people come in and they treat Eurasian WaterMilfoil with contact herbicides, and they don't allow our systemic herbicides to work. And then in a month or 2, that milfoil starts coming back because we didn't get systemic control because it was burned off before we sprayed. On Starry Stonewort, we don't get that kind of control anyway, so there's no danger in you treating a private shoreline that's gonna really hurt what the association's doing with Starry Stone. Okay, because it's a repetitive thing. Here and then there.
Okay, you had mentioned that you were talking about this, and you're like, you know, I know it sounds like doom and gloom, but it's not doom and gloom. And yet, everything you say to me sounds exactly the opposite. It's like, there's nothing we can do to stop this spread. So that's the thing we can treat you, that's 3 times, and as we know, in this country especially, things don't get cheaper, they only get more expensive, which means the price is just gonna keep going up and up and up every year. I hate to break it to you, but to me, that kind of sounds like doom and gloom.
He's a positive guy.
That's
Positive guy. We do nothing and we won't be using the lake, I mean.
If you have Starry Stone Wart extensive shoreline and you do nothing, that is doing.
Yeah.
I can say this, you know, you can
Speak to that.
but yeah,
You touched briefly on if the bottom is sandy and gravelly,
yeah,
Starry Stone Wart doesn't grow
as well, yeah.
as well. Now, I understand when we talk about having a conservancy and aerating the lake. One of the things about aeration is that it consumes the muck on the bottom, get down to the sandy gravelly bottom underneath that. Is that a appropriate strategy?
I'm not an expert on aeration. I know that that's the theory behind a lot of it. I'll probably just defer on that one aside from, you know, making something up that I'm not sure about. That's a good question. I'll say this, aeration in general, if you're in a pond, is usually a good thing. I would not personally count on aeration to solve the Starry Stone problem. I can speak to that for sure. That's about all the farther I can go with my area of expertise with that, if that makes sense. Let me go over there, yeah.
You said WaterMilfoil had 250 acres of it.
Yeah, in 5 years, yeah.
So 250 acres of it every year now?
Yeah, so get this. I wasn't gonna go into this, but Lake Wawasee is in the Great Lakes drainage basin. Okay. If you're in the Great Lakes drainage basin, there's a big pot of money to the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative that is available for Starry Stone Wart Control.
How do you get into that?
You gotta change.
How do you get in that?
Well, I'm just curious.
If you are not in the Great Lakes drainage basin, which we know that you guys knew about that, RV's in the same boat, Chapman's in the same boat. If you're outside of that basin, you don't have, GLRI is federal funding, none of that's available. If you're a few miles.
Lakes or lakes, I'm sorry, I'll get off that, but.
So the only funding that I know of that's available to you guys for Starry Stone Wart funding is Lair, Lake and River Enhancement. They will cap your funding at $5,000. And they do that for one reason. They know the exact same thing that I'm telling you guys.
They'll never. keep up with it.
We can't keep up with it. Like we could give you guys $100,000 every year you could spend it on Starry Stone Wart Control. And so for them to be able to manage other projects like Milfoil, Curly, and even have some in the bank in case Hydrilla shows up, things like that, they can't spend all their money on Starry Stone Wart. So it's more of a maintenance deal. It's not doom and gloom. I'll just say this, John Rogers, probably the world's expert on Starry Stone Wart. I had dinner with him a couple of years ago. He said this. He said, Starry Stone Wart isn't a death sentence, but if it's at your frontage, you have to be as persistent as it is. Repetitive treatment. Yeah.
Okay, I have another one. You're gonna give me $150,000 a year. What is that gonna do for my lake?
Now, rephrase it for me without.
Okay, let's say I have an owner.
I want that one.
Say
Okay, yeah. He gets $150,000, he doesn't know. He wants to give it to the lake every year.
Yeah.
What can that do for the lake? Anything that's worthwhile?
Yeah, so if I had an unlimited, let's say unlimited to spend every year, I would probably focus on water quality. That's not for us. That's for your grandkids and your great-grandkids. Okay, understand that. There's nothing you guys are gonna do with water quality that's gonna make a gigantic difference in the next 2 years. That's long term. So I focus on the long term. And then in the short term, I would focus on maintaining it, like for Lake of the Woods specifically, I would maintain control of the milfoil. Because you don't want this on top of your Starry Stone Wart. Keep on this. Okay, Starry Stone Wart isn't a reason to quit managing milfoil. Even though it'll outcompete milfoil in some of these areas, milfoil will do well. Okay. long-term, keep on top of the milfoil and the curly pondweed, and then maintain the starry stonewort for lake use. You're not stopping the spread for lake use. Those are the three things I.
So is that 150,000 gonna out with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, depending, you can spend that.
We can take care of the milfoil and take care of the.
Yeah, like the milfoil, at this point, I would say for whole lake management, to stay on top of the 100 acres that we know is out there, I would say that's very economical. You know, if we can treat 1 acre like last year, or 12 acres, next year I would expect there to be a little bit more milfoil, because it's gonna be.
Or it's gonna wear
It's
out.
gonna wear off, but if we can rotate those treatment areas, that's, to me, that's a no-brainer. That's especially when Larry's paying 80% of that. That's a no-brainer. But maintain the milfoil, maintain the starry for lake use where it's called. And cut us off. I'm happy to answer questions as long as you want. I know you've got a meeting. Cut us off at any time, Mike.
Okay,
You
well,
know, a consistent source of funding allows you to do those things. I mean, guys, we have what, $15,000 right now, maybe, or something like that, or whatever it is, I don't know, 20,000.
roughly $20,000.
People are generous, they're giving $100, $50 or whatever.
Well, we worked off, basically it's donations and funding. That's it. That's the whole reason why behind what we're trying to do with the Conservancy is have dedicated funding so we can attack these problems. And you've got the opposition saying, hey, everything's great. Well, obviously, everything's not great. You know, we need to aggressively have a plan every year to spray for the vegetation management and take care of what we need to and what we can.
And then it takes away this fair and not fair thing, right? I didn't pay, I got treated because it's the worst area, we have to treat the worst area. I paid, I didn't get treated. There's a reliable source of funding. It's spread out.
It's
even.
spread out, everybody gets a fair shake on that. So, the other two things I want to talk to you real quickly. So we have a lot of phosphorus coming into the ditches. There's the phosphorus and the water clarity affect the growth of the native and the invasive weeds. Like what we have now, we have a lot of weeds in a lot of areas along with the algae. Does that affect this?
Yeah, good question. So phosphorus, I know that's always a hot topic. There's products that you can put in the water now to actually bind with the phosphorus and precipitate it out. I'll say this, usually phosphorus mitigation, I feel like for aquatics, just generally speaking, it's not a bad thing. I mean, that's a good thing. And you can lower the amount of nutrients in the water. Every ecosystem has a limiting nutrient. We can only grow, our plants can only grow as much as the phosphorus is available. Along with that, let me just be realistic and say too, just because of the internal nutrient cycling within the lake itself, within the bottom, you have enough phosphorus there to grow plants for a long time, okay? I would still look to address the long term if it was me and I had funds. I think that's an investment in the future. I think that just the expectations would need to be in line with phosphorus management or whatever you're doing, that you're not gonna see immediate results. And that's something more for your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids, more so than it is of, hey, if we take all the phosphorus out of our ditches coming in, next year we won't have any starry snowboard. Okay, if that's your idea, don't do it. But I would address those future things if I had them.
I know I spoke already, but I would like to know, because you're talking about all that, what does TMDL impaired restoration plan mean?
TMDL impaired restoration plans.
Yeah, it was on the internet, that our lake.
Well, let me address a couple of things.
How much is this gonna help?
And where on our website?
Or was it one of the letters and misinformation that people put out
I think
there?
that's what it is.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak to that real quickly. There's been a lot of letters that have gone out. Nobody's had the balls to actually step up and put their name on it. I think if you got an opinion, you actually should, say, hey, this is valid, put your name down, say, hey, this is what I believe in, go for it. But if you don't, and you just want to be in the shadows, that's fine. But my take on it is, I've looked at a couple of these letters, people have sent them to me. There's so much misinformation in there. It's crazy. I can't even address all the points. And at some point, if somebody wants to sit down from the opposition and wants to address that, I'd be more than happy to put facts to it, because if you're gonna put something out there, at least put facts with it. If you're not gonna put any facts with it, it's just like throwing something on the wall, see what sticks. That's crazy. If you don't have any facts, it doesn't belong out there. And another thing, if you wanna call people out, call them out. You know, I've had people say that I'm not willing to talk with you about the conservancy, or I didn't want to do this or that. Hey, I've gone around this lake at least twice. I've talked to the opposition on probably 6 or 7 occasions. You know, reach out to other people outside of the court cases that we're currently in to get a conservancy. My phone number is on the Facebook page. You want to talk? My door is always open. So don't say that I'm not doing something that I should. I know, no, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking in general. I just want everybody to be clear. This board has been more transparent than any board before it. This board has done more for the lake than any board before it. So with that being said, that's where we stand. I would like to say thanks to Dave. Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody knows what it means.
It's.
Total maximum.
It's there, you can Google around and find
Well,
things
that's
out about it, but.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole other process.
Let's
Okay,
be
but that's
respectful
why
of
we're
his
gonna
time and
get-
get his questions, whatever people want to ask him, so we can be respectful of
Right,
his
we're gonna
time.
wrap Dave up here. We're gonna limit this to
If
5
there's-
minutes. Is there any other questions anybody wants to ask?
I just, one quick question. How hard, do you have any feel for how hard chemical companies are working on something for Firestone or anything on the horizon that you say?
Yeah, good question. Just gonna be honest with you, very little. Okay, and then wish I could say, hey, we're working hard on it, you know, as far as new formulations, there are very few companies in the world doing research on new formulations. Okay, Cellacor was from one of those few companies that was actually doing research on a new product. It's just the way the world works. I won't bore you with all the details. Aquatics is comparatively an incredibly small market when you compare it to agriculture. A lot of what we do have available to us are products that were first and foremost developed for agriculture. And then a company said, hey, let's test this in water in the lab and see if it's safe and effective. Most of our products are coming from that channel instead of new research. So as far as me, okay, 5 years, we're gonna have something to wipe Starry Snowboard out. I do not see that happening at all. And the hard part is we have things that work incredibly well for the vegetation. It's just, we can't keep it down. It's the repetitive treatment. That's the challenge. The challenge isn't control. The challenge is maintaining the control.
I know I put you through a few times here today. No, I really just wanted to say, before you leave, honestly, as an owner and as a lake user, thank you for everything that you do. You're helping, and it's really appreciative to the board. Also, thank you guys. I mean, it's not an easy job you guys are doing, and you have to deal with a lot of crap. All of you do. And I imagine you probably came in here thinking, "Oh, Jesus, what am I getting into?" But thank you. Really, seriously, you're helping us. We appreciate it.
No, I appreciate that too. And I would say, you know, we love the lakes too. Like I got into this business because I'm a lake rat. If I'm not fishing or boating on a lake, that's what I do in my free time. I work on the lakes in the week. On the weekends, I'm on them too. So I love the lakes just like you guys do. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, one more. Okay, yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, we could treat it ourselves with
Yeah, copper-based algicides, most of them will work, and that, maybe I didn't, maybe emphasize that enough. Along with what the association's doing, I just want to highlight, emphasize, red flag, what Tom said, they do not have enough funding to address it.
Right.
You as a private homeowner, you know, regardless of what the association does, as long as you can get a permit from the DNR, and we can help with that, to treat your own private frontage, you can stay up with the Starry Snowboard between hiring us or your own copper treatments, whatever it is. So I would encourage people who have a problem and the association isn't able to address that problem in the way you want with Starry Snowboard. You can privately, I know it's with your own funding, but you can do more or be permitted to do more at your frontage if you need to.
And it would be advisable to get your neighbors involved, do a bigger area and pool your money together. I think it would be more cost effective to do so. to have somebody come in.
But you have to have a permit.
You got to have a permit.
Yeah, so a private homeowner can treat 625 square feet, which is like 25 by 25, it's a very small area. You can treat that on your own without a permit. If you want to do a bigger area, you need to hire somebody who has the license like us, wouldn't have to be us. But I will say this, and it sounds like I'm trying to drum up business, I'm not. If I'm living on the lake shore, if I can get my neighbors, okay, and get 10 homes together to treat, I'm gonna get pretty decent control. It's gonna last a little longer. If I'm one home and my neighbors don't treat and they're topped out with Starry stoneware and I treat my 50 feet, it's not gonna work as well, it's not gonna last as long. That's just feeling. Yeah, one more, how about that, one more.
What is the best source of carbon sulfate?
The best source of copper sulfate? I'm gonna refer you to like a Rural King or a Tractor Supply to get aquatic copper sulfate. There's copper sulfates out there for different animal stuff that aren't labeled for aquatic use. So what I'm not telling you what everybody does. What I'm telling you is what you should be doing is getting a certain copper sulfate that is labeled for aquatic use. If you go to the pond section, you know you're gonna see.
Dave, I want to thank you very much for your time. Thank you. By the way, if you haven't filled out the form, this is for Larry, please fill one out.
Any other lake use surveys before I go? I'll get that.
Jim,
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Jim, here's some more.
Hey. Pencils there.
Dave, get those two together. Okay, so.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah, we can
I did
give us a
not-
call. We'll make